Good morning.
Good morning.
How's everybody doing?
Awesome.
Who golfed yesterday? Who won? Oh, I had to stop on like the 6th hole because I pulled a muscle in my back Saturday.
Oh no.
But I had fun. I putted. I got the best putt I've had in my life, and that gets longer and longer the ways more I tell that story. But it was a great long putt. So anyway, announcements for today. June 26th, Sam, today, base camp. Sam Bell is going to be doing base camp, so make sure you attend that. And then SEB Legal is doing death, divorce, and real estate. So attend that. I think that's on Friday, right? Okay.
Right at the time?
Time 10 o'clock. Yep. So right here. Script pack practice today at 1 o'clock. And remember every morning here.
No, today's Toastmasters.
Well, oh, that's right. I'm sorry. Thank you. Toastmasters today at 1 o'clock. Every day besides today is script practice at 1. Every morning here from 7 to 8. First we do listing presentation. Then we do objection handling. So attend that. Superstar retreat coming up. We still have a few tickets left for that. So $100, way cheap. So attend that. It's a good thing to be doing. Cowabunga Bay, July 31st. We always have a ton of fun there. So be there and be part of that. Am I forgetting any other announcements? Okay, great. So the book we're going to be starting is Execution. Has anybody ever read this? George?
Those are former guys, yeah, the two guys who work for Jack Welch, yeah. Yes, twice.
Perfect, good. So we're going to start this next week. Go get it and read it. I'm really excited to get into this book. Let's go to chapter 4. We'll discuss chapter 4 next week at this time. That being said, George, come on up, will you?
Ready?
You're ready. It's all you.
You caught me off guard.
Oh, there you go.
Ready.
Ready best.
All right, cool. All right, how's everybody doing?
Awesome.
Basically, I don't know. So here's the good news. Not by show of hands, but just ask yourself: are you really uncomfortable in here? That means you're in the right spot. Just kidding. All right. So I love the statement of this, and that is that remain curious and stop being so darn judgmental. My observation is that people are so judgmental and they lose their curiosity. Some of the worst words in the English dictionary are "I already know that." So I just want you to think about that as you say that, your brain shuts off and you don't remain curious. And here's the deal. Principles are easy to talk about. The reality for each one of us individually is how do we put those into our lives and how do we implement them? Every one of us will not get through this life without the challenges of our economics, the challenges of our health, and the challenges of the most important and critical relationships of our lives. And we will ebb and flow with them. It is absolutely for certain. But one of the things that I find interesting is that we are often so harsh and hard upon ourselves that we will never look at the actual journey that we've actually taken and that we've actually gone through. So think about, one of the things that, think about just your own journey. And one of my favorite things, and some of this stuff, again, look, learning is remembering, right? Here's what's kind of fun to look at. If you read it literally, and man, I've read a lot of different, what people would consider to be scriptures from whatever religion you want to talk about. And what seems to be a consistent theme in whatever book or scripture or anything you want to look at from any different type of thinking is this one statement that becomes consistent. Remember. Like, it's crazy how many times something starts off with remember. Remember, 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 remember. Because the thing that's interesting is that there really isn't anything that you don't already know and that isn't already inside of you and that isn't already there. So the question is if your life isn't where you want it to be versus what it actually is, the difference, the space between what you want it to be and what it actually is oftentimes the level of anxiety, the fear, the depression, the sadness, because you have this vision of what is possible versus what your life actually is. And that could be maybe a relationship, what it actually is, what you want it to be. It could be your friendships, what they are versus what they could be. It could be your economics, where you are and where you want it to be. The number of deals you're actually doing versus the deals you're not want to be doing. So just think about that gap. Think about your frustrations. And then oftentimes we'll even come to a space of guilt. And that is interesting, is that we almost always have what I consider to be a standard. Remember, your life is exactly what you want it to be today. And you may say, oh no, that's not true. Well, yes, because it's all about the standards that you live in your life, right? It's the rituals that we each put into our lives. So just take a step back, and as you look at your life and you evaluate it and you reformulate it and you think about it and you restructure it and then you reformulate it again, and think about what sports is about at halftime or at a timeout in a basketball game. It's all about reformulating. So it's not like a one-time shot of reformulating. It's taking a step back and recognizing that reformulating, restructuring, playing a different way, using different drills, using different things, using all these different things to try to get the outcome that we ultimately want. So some of you I know in here obviously very, very well. Some of you I don't. But one of the stories I've often told myself as I've looked and I've done all this different climbing and hiking over the years, and my favorite one is always the one to Kings Peak. And there's about 3 false summits. If you haven't hiked Kings Peak, it's the highest mountain in Utah, 13,568 feet. Not even 14,000 feet, but it's a good jaunt. It's about 19 miles to get to the top that you have to walk. It's the shortest route, and there's even longer routes to get there. So as you get to the first false peak, you're a little disappointed as you're scrambling up this rock. How many people have climbed Kings Peak? All right, okay. So the last 900 feet, right, are the scrambling of rocks and these big boulders that move. And I remember the first time, Kenzie reminded me that she grew up with a trekking pole in her back because she would slow down and I'd poke her and I'd make her go. And I think I'm not kidding you, she was, how old were you the first time you hiked Kings Peak? 5, 6, 7, 8, something like that. And I remember as we were going up and she was shaking and scared, and I just said, I'll see you at the bottom. And I just went down, and she's scrambling down this thing. And it was like this, you better figure it out. Figure it out. It's kind of my philosophy for my kids. Figure it out. So my point to you is that we'll get to the second one, and you think the second false summit, you think you're there. And I know you guys have heard this, but I would love to just pause right there. And I remember one time I was with Mackenzie and Jennifer, and I remember she was so scared. The wind was howling, but I made everybody stop, and I said, now look around and look behind you and look at all the 19 miles that you just gained. And before you get there and celebrate to the top, right? Because I don't think any of us have ultimately arrived where we ultimately want to be in any area of our life. So if that's the case, do you ever take a step back and just look and go, wow, look how far I've come? Or do you only look to the summit and say, I can't believe I'm not there yet? Sometimes once in a while, you should take a step back and look how far you've come. Because the reality is that if you really were to explain your life to someone, tell them of all the tragedy, the challenge, the struggle. The same I always make, like I made last week at base camp, which is treat everybody you know as if they're going through the most difficult moments of their life. And I have the unique opportunity, as some of maybe the leaders and managers do, or your friendships in here, you get to take a look and you get to see really on the inside what people are really struggling with, what they're really going with either health issues, deaths in family, issues with spouses, issues with economics, issues with children, issues with their own health, issues. And you sit there and when you get to hear it, you're kind of like, whoa, I can't believe how far you've come. And I can't believe how far and how great you've done. So sometimes, not just that I'm always saying, hey, you need to pat yourself on the back, but once in a while you should take a step back and just ask yourself, really, how far have I come? And take a step back and write in your journal and look at what you've accomplished. I always believe a journal is where you keep score. And I just did that this morning. I went through a series of things and I just had Gretchen Smoot say, can you believe this year? And then she said these words, and it's only June. And as we were going through all these different things and working on different areas of the company, and I was thinking, it is interesting. How far have we come just even in 6 months? So just as you move through your life, just take a step back once in a while and just ask yourself, where have you come from? And where then, of course, where are you going, right? So yesterday I asked an individual in a coaching session, I asked this question. And I have to tell you that when they answered the question, Matt, they started answering it, and I said, thank you, and I really appreciate the pontification and the lies that you're sharing with me right now. But I would actually like to hear actually the truth. And I want to point something out. It was also the counsel I gave to someone yesterday about 9 o'clock last night on a phone call. And this was the thing that I told them. Remember that the truth is clear, it is simple, and it is very specific. And I said, what you're going to want to do in the situation you're going into is you're going to want to flower it up. You're going to want to use lots of words, and you're going to want to use lots of things to explain yourself, somehow to hide the realities and the truth. So if you unfortunately get the conversation with, if I was the one to terminate you, either as an agent in the company, or, which I hope never happens, but if I was to terminate you also, which I hope never happens in regards to business, today I can tell you that the last person I terminated, frankly, was our CFO, and it went a little bit like this. She sat down and I said, we will not be working together any longer, and I appreciate your service. I didn't even say hi. And it wasn't that I was angry, it was simply this, that the truth is specific, it is clear, it is concise, and it is not flowery. And when you know when someone is speaking the truth. And so when we get that moment of flowery and we get into the expanding all horizons and everything that we talk about, think about how you're approaching the presentation. Think about how you're approaching the close. Think about how you're approaching your prospecting. What's really interesting about the truth is the fact that we are often afraid to speak and share the truth, but what is so interesting about it is it's actually what actually brings us together. Because people will either, there's only two things in life. You're either moving towards people or you're moving away from them. And when people are not committing to truth, which you have a moral obligation, a stewardship to do so in this business, it's one of the most important leadership principles I could ever share with you, is that people will move towards you when you're speaking it. They will move away from you when not. You will literally feel it, and you will see it in their physical body language in a listing presentation if they feel within themselves that you are not speaking the truth. And you may say, well, I'm not lying. Let me tell you something. To me, lying is withholding the truth. Knowing the truth and not telling them. Telling them that their home is great when it's not so great. Telling them the price of their home when it's not that price. Telling them the home will sell when you know it won't at that price. Telling them that everything's fine when it's not. All of these different things, when you say, well, I didn't lie, I didn't say that this or that, but you withheld it, same thing to me, lying. So yesterday, in a coaching session, I said these words, this was the question, and it is the single most important question I really believe that I have ever asked myself. I wish I could tell you that I came up with it, but I didn't. But I do distinctly remember right where I was in the middle of Moab, in the middle of the desert, listening to a CD by a gentleman by the name of Jim Rohn. And it is the same question, by the way, that you now hear today that was the mentor of Tony Robbins, who will say the same thing, but it is this question. And it's a simple question. Who do I need to become to, and boy, you know what? You fill in the blank. So in this coaching session, this person explained to me all the things they wanted to accomplish, all the goals, the dreams that they had, everything they wanted to have happen. And you could feel the passion towards what they wanted. Tears in their eyes, their commitment to the things they wanted to have, the money they wanted to earn, the things they wanted to do with it, the places they wanted to go, the impact they wanted on humanity. And I said this, that is so awesome. I can feel your commitment, your energy, your love, your desire for all of that. But I have even a better question for you. And I said, I don't give a, make sure I got to use the right script here, Mike, because it was a little more flowery. I said, I don't care what you want. That's the abbreviated message. But I don't care what you want. Only to the degree that you care about it. And I said, but you know what I really care about? is who do you need to become? Or who do I, if I'm asking myself, who do I need to become? And I was so interested. Who do you have to become? And then that is when they started to talk about the level of love that they needed to have towards others. They started to talk about, just in such brief and short terms, how they needed to love, how they needed to accept, and how when they walked into a room, there would never be a question as to whether someone knew that they loved them. And then, at that moment, they shifted and they started to pontificate and to explain all this other crap. And as I felt my body totally drawing in, like, whoa, this is so cool, I literally felt myself step back. And because in my most gentle format of life, I went, stop. And they said, what? I said, stop talking because I can't handle lies. That is not what you think. So stop hiding behind it and truly tell the truth of who you have to become. And what was so powerful behind it was that this individual sat in silence for at least, I'm going to say 30 seconds. Not more than a minute. As we just stared at each other. And then their eyes filled with tears and said these famous words I will never forget from an individual in my life. I'm scared to let people know who I am. And then, of course, then the truth came out. Now you say, well, man, that's kind of harsh. How can you be so confrontational? I don't know. Came out of the womb that way. I just like to be. And I can't stand it when I know someone is lying to me, where they try to look better than they really are, try to appear better than they really are. And it's not even about the betterment. It's about the fact that they're hiding behind this cloak, hiding behind thinking that we are all not smart enough to figure out that someone is not being honest, true, authentic, whatever word resonates for you. It doesn't. The reason why, John always over here, Rhodes, makes fun of me. I'll say things like, anybody you know, your aunt, your uncle, your sisters, your brothers, and he'll say, can't you, when you said just anybody you know, didn't that make sense to everybody? No, because every word resonates differently for everybody else. And it is a very specific thing that I do. I'll say words like authentic, your true self, live your truth. Look, whatever word resonates, but I can just simply tell you that what people will be attracted to, the highest level of leadership is to simply stand strong in your truth, in you. When you stand and you share a script, is the message within you truly that it is about them or is it about you? If you had a chance to listen to my coaching session on Monday, I've had a lot of comments on that where people have gone back and watched it because it was about the energy that you bring to the table every time you show up. And I would just point to you that it is not the script. We can learn every script known to mankind, but it is who you are being. It is how you are saying something. It is the tonality that you bring to the table that will make all the difference in the world. And so people will show up at a meeting like this and they'll ask themselves, well, but is this going to make that big of a difference? I don't know. But what I do know is that I become who I spend my time with. There is a reason why I sleep and have slumber parties, if you would say. It's so funny because Sabrina Ferry will make fun of me and she'll be like, oh, it's a guy's day. And why do I hang out with Mike Ferry? Why do I go and take a weekend and just spend the weekend with him? Why do I go and hit Starbucks and then go get a hair? I never believed when I was sitting having my hair washed next to Mike Ferry. You couldn't have your hair washed, Paul, but see, you may not get this experience with Mike. But I'm sitting there at the salon having my hair washed and cut, sitting right next to Mike Ferry, and I still remember saying to myself, Alan, I never saw that this would ever happen. But yet the reality is that I made a commitment that I would spend time with specific people. And so I just want to point out to you that you may think that you're fine when you go about your life by yourself, but I would challenge each of you that if you don't make the critical decision to spend time in the right environments, in the right places, with the right people, in a consistent fashion in your life, it is unlikely that you will expand your mind, your horizon, your understanding, your beliefs, your standards of how you live your life. They won't change. Because if you're in a group of people where you're already above them, the challenge I would ask you is that what really are you achieving? My favorite thing is when Leslie Thorpe, who's now retired just this last few months, here she is, and she comes in the company. She's the number 2 agent, the number 2 or number 1 at many years in Coldwell Banker. 500, 600, 700 agents across the state of Utah. Number 1, number 2. She walks into Everest, she's number 11. Do you know how inspiring that was for her? I still remember her sitting down. She goes, I am so happy. I go, what are you so happy about? That I am the number 11 agent in this company. She said, I am number 11, and yet I am so now inspired to become more because of who I'm spending my time with. I just would challenge you that in every area of your life, whether it be your relationships, whether it be your health, whether it be your income and your business, spend time with the right people. Spend time with people who will raise your standards, not lower them. Spend time with people who will elevate you and inspire you, not draw you down and bring you down. And you say, well, wait a second, that's pretty tough because everybody around, then change it. You're not, in the words of Jim Rohn, you're not a tree, move. Right? You're not planted in whatever place you are forever. But take a stand for what you believe in. Take a stand for where you're going. Take a stand for what's critical to raise the standards of your life. So as we move through just these thoughts on leadership, I just want to point out that this one right here of the becoming, I just would point out, for me, there's a few things that I know you need to become to be a top leader. Leader in life, leader in the business, leader in your family, leader in your maybe it's your community, maybe it's your church. But if you really want to expand your life, then the question I always ask is the becoming, but then becoming to do what? So if I took just 3 principles and I want to repeat even a story or two that some of you have heard, I just want you to think about the vision. What do you see is possible? So in another meeting yesterday, I had this conversation, and it was interesting. They said, do you know why you scare me? Well, I said, well, why? They said, because the way you think, I often think is never even possible. And here's what's interesting about vision. Just point a few things out here. One, yes, it should be clear. All right, we'll just put a few points here. Hey, clear. Clarity. Clarity brings power. Knowing where you're going. All right, it's the Alice in Wonderland, right? Is it Cheshire the cat, right? Yeah. And she asks, which road should I take? And what does he say? In so many words, what does he say?
Where do you want to go?
Where do you want to go? And she goes, I don't know. In so many words, right? And then what does he say? Well, then it doesn't matter what road you take. Just want you to think about that. If you don't know where you're going, I've talked about this and I've made fun of it. I hate people. Not people. I hate it. I don't hate people. Everyone knows me. I don't hate people. I hate it when people love to go hiking and not hit some level of a destination and summit. It drives me crazy. Like, I used to run at Liberty Park. And if you know Liberty Park, it's this huge park, right? And it just goes in a big circle. And it would drive me nuts. And I realized why I started to despise running there. Because I felt like I was going nowhere. There's a reason why I love to talk about, like, the word summit, the top of the mountain, whatever it may be, because I like to get somewhere. Not run in circles, not run in loops, not just go halfway and then come back down, not go 75%, go back down. I meet people over and over again that have gone to Kings Peak, and at about 80% of the hike, they are at the second fault summit, maybe in the third fault summit, and I get and they turn around, and they're like, I just can't do it. I gotta. And the thing is you're created to do extraordinary things. So go to the top. Some of the indicators of whether people truly are finishers, closers, is always ask the question, how many books do you start but never finish? Think about that. How you do anything is how you do something is how you do everything. So just think about that. How many books do you start that you never finish? 25% through, 50% through, 75% through? Do you actually finish the book? And I'm not suggesting that you can't ever not finish a book, but I would bet you that if you're that person who never finishes them, like 9 out of 10 times you never finish the book, I would bet you that you don't get to lots of summits. Because the reality is that if you are doing it that with the book, you're doing it in other areas of your life. So get clear. Second thing about a vision is that it always has to be a vision that is better. Now I seem like, well, what do you mean? Well, if it's a really good vision, it's not the vision of how horrible life's going to be later. It's the vision, and when you go down that path of destruction, yes, you can create that vision of how much worse it can be, how tough it will be, how difficult it will be, how you don't know if it'll work out. But I would challenge you that your vision of it being better, it's real simple. My favorite example is this. If you got on the Mayflower, did you think your life was, even though you may have died of scurvy and been thrown overboard, but as a general statement, you got on the Mayflower and what did you think your life was going to be? Worse or better? Better. If you were one of the people in Omaha, Nebraska, in winter quarters, and you were on a wagon train and you were pulling a handcart, that this incredible state we live in, do you think that you thought your life was going to be better when you pulled a wagon cart 2,000 miles across the plains? Do you think it was better or worse?
Better.
Better. So much of a belief that it was better that you would sacrifice. So the key to all great visions is that they require some level of sacrifice. They all do. Doesn't matter. But here's the key about sacrifice and vision. So think about it. You get clear on where you are. Your vision has to be better. You know there's going to be a sacrifice, but this is a key thing to vision. Number 4 is that it's going to be a temporary sacrifice. You say, well, what do you mean? Well, here's what's crazy. I say go prospect, and this is what your brain does. Forever! No, just 2 hours. Well, I mean forever? No, just 4 or 5 days a week. Well, you mean forever? No, well, 240 days a year. I mean, take 2.5 months off. I just want you to think how our brain works. I mean, when you were thinking, if you were on the Mayflower and you were on the boat day after day, what did you think you were going to be on the boat for? For forever, right? When you're pulling a hand cart, what do you think they thought? This is never going to end. This is going to go on forever. But here's what's so crazy. Sacrifice is never, ever, forever. Whatever you may look at, whatever martyr you may look at, whatever sacrifice they give, it is always temporary. So just remember that as you move through the vision, is that it's got to be clear, it's got to be better, it's got to have sacrifice. It will have but the sacrifice is temporary because you know that it's going to be better. And it's going to be temporary. And then here's the 5th. And it's a simple word. Focus. And you say, what do you mean focus? Here's the problem. If I took that list up there, where do you think people focus when they get their vision? They get clear. They know where they're going. And then they make the fatal mistake to focus on something. And where do you think the majority of their focus is? Right, the sacrifice. And I'm just going to put another word up here. They focus on the pain of the moment. They focus, so simple terms. Who goes to the gym? Anybody go to a gym? Simple. You can get stuck into this. You focus on the pain of the moment. You focus on how hard it is to lift the weight, how hard it is to take one more step, how hard it is, and you focus on the pain of the moment instead of the vision of the future. And it is a habit in our lives. And most of us are wired to focus on the pain of the moment instead of the beauty and the glory and the awesomeness of the vision of what our life can be. We focus on the pain of, I'm not a morning person. Focus on the pain. I don't want to be uncomfortable doing a script or dialogue. Focus on the pain. But what's so crazy is get up early, practice, prospect, and if the focus gets onto that sacrifice and pain versus, wow, if I get up early, I learn a script, I prospect, wow, look, I could earn all this money, drive this car, live in this home, pay for these things, go on these trips, have this glorious and beautiful vision of the future. But then what we do? Oh gosh, I don't know if I can do 2 hours. 2 hours is tough. And that's a real sacrifice. It's going to be tough. I don't know. Maybe I should get another job. Maybe I should get a real job. Maybe I should do something where I'm not rejected and I can feel better about myself. And this is so tough. And I don't know if I can do this. Well, I don't like standing up in front of people. And I don't like affirmations. And well, I feel really weird when I say, now I'm the voice. And I don't know if I like that. And instead of like, oh crap, I get that. Now I'm the voice. When I show up at the listing and I hear the voice go, I don't know if you're going to get that. I don't know if they're going to pay you that commission. Then you can say, now I am the voice. I will get the commission. Instead, you focus on the stupidity of all humanity. We all do it. I do it. We focus on the energy and the sacrifice and the pain of the moment instead of the glory and the beauty of what the vision can be. And if you want your life to be extraordinary, if you want to really live your vision, if you want to move through the sacrifice, the pain, and everything else, then you've got to focus on what it can be, who you can become, right? The becoming, not the pain of, man, to become that, that's going to be really hard. I mean, that means I'm going to have to get out of my comfort zone. Yeah, everything you want in your life is outside of your comfort zone. Everything you want that is really awesome and amazing is outside of your comfort zone. Hence the reason this is a really scary environment to be in as a general rule. And there is no one who is a top producing agent in this company that has not gone through this room or these meetings or these morning ascents. And there are many that come back and they shift through and they go through and they get to a certain point and then they maybe step back and then they come back and then they realize that, hey, wait, maybe I haven't totally arrived, and they come back again and again and again. So just remember that if you want to create a life and you want to become more, I mean, that's just one or two principles on leadership to be extraordinary. I'll close with this little story. The only way think about this, be a good little message to maybe write down. The only way a boat sinks, a boat, right? A boat sinks is if what's on the outside gets in on the inside. I want you to think about that for a minute. The only way a boat sinks is if what's going on the outside, meaning the water, gets in to the inside. Simple statement. But man, what a great metaphor. So we're in a recession. We're in a depression. So if you let the depression, the recession get on the inside, guess what? You're going to go down and you will sink. So what's interesting is that the reason why to avoid CNN and Fox and all the negative news and all the negative headlines and all the nonsense that's out there is because if you let too much of what's going on the outside into the inside, you are doomed for failure. I want you to think about how you're really protecting your inside. What walls, firewalls, fortifications have you put in place to instill in you? Right? It's no different than all of the password protections of my kids on their iPhone so they're not out looking at porn in their room. We say, oh my gosh, did we just say that? Yeah, you said that's the reason. Because I want to protect what's going on the outside. Or not protect them from what's going on the outside, on the inside. So I just would challenge you that if you're going to live an extraordinary life, you got to remember that meetings like this, affirmations, reading, listening, writing, watching, meditating, visualizing, spending time with the right people, coaching, mentoring, whatever it is, all of these things are to create a fortification to keep out what is on the outside and bring it on to the inside. This morning I got into my car, and as I got in, there was this song, and I really liked this song. And I said these words, though. I like that song. this is just my own head, I didn't say it out loud. I like this song. That's a great song. And then I said these words, but I didn't choose to listen to it. And so I turned it off and started back listening to my Tony Robbins thing I was listening to this morning. I just want you to think about how you're living your life. All of these things that you're doing are just simply habits. And some of the habits that we each have in our lives are extraordinary and are building each one of us up. And then the other parts of our lives, we have habits, rituals, systems in our life that are not serving our lives well. Your job is to ask yourself better questions. What habits, rituals, systems, things within my life am I doing that are not allowing me to become who I ultimately need to become? It is in that journey, it is in that process, it is in all of that, that as you move through that, is what can become for you, what can happen for you, what can be created for you would be my challenge. And with that, if Evan's walking out, I guess we're done. Just kidding, Evan, if you heard that. Okay? So just remember, man,